This guy is a serial entrepreneur, high creative, house flipper, great dad.
Oh, hey, I'll take that. Starting from scratch again has been a little bit of a hard thing to swallow.
Like humbling.
There's a humbling, there's more of annoying factor to it than humbling, I guess.
It's crazy that they'll even, if you're not even profitable.
Right.
And they see the growth.
Yeah.
And they know, yeah.
I know. The beauty of EBITDA.
That's the first thing they take. They'll come after you. Hey kids, we're gonna go live with grandma and grandpa.
Right. I think building a brand is more important than it ever has been before. Whether it's easier or harder, I think.
This is the Unleash Your Purpose podcast.
All right, welcome back to Unleash Your Purpose with your host, Ryan Centers. I'm with my great friend, Mr. Seth Wells. Welcome.
Thanks, man.
So what you may not know about this guy is a serial entrepreneur, high creative, house flipper, great dad.
Oh, hey, I'll take that.
Yeah, thank you. And you inspired me to get a boat. Did you know this?
I think you did tell me that. We talked about it a little bit.
Okay, so
how have you been liking it, by the way? Boat life?
Boat life is the great life, even though I haven't used it in a couple months because it's cold right now. Right. But I watched you wakeboard on your wakeboard boat, so I said, I got to be just like Seth. So I bought myself a pontoon boat.
Hey.
It doesn't get the waves just like you do.
Yeah.
But you know what? We can go off and the kids can get up, so it's been a good time.
That's cool. Has it been turned into the hole in the water yet that you put money into?
Yes. The happiest day is the day you buy a boat and sell your boat.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm arguing that with the manufacturer that they need to fix the carpet because it's under warranty, and of course they don't remember that they promised this and all the things, and you know, it's not a money pit.
Okay.
It is a blessing.
Okay.
That
You're still in the honeymoon phase of boat ownership.
You're out of the honeymoon?
No, I honestly do. Like, I've loved every minute of it. It's been awesome. So
okay.
They are expensive, but
that's cool.
It's like it was my ticket to survival when I moved to Arizona. Once we found the lakes and got into going to the lakes and doing wakeboarding and stuff, like it's what got me through.
Yeah. So we knew each other from church world.
Yep.
You were a worship leader, but a high creative. And what I love when I hang out with you is that have the mind probably 10 times me, like you're a serial entrepreneur. But you started multiple things, had some successful exits. And when I am going through trouble of what the heck do I do with a certain company of mine, you're one of the guys I alys call.
Dude, I appreciate
So maybe
that.
you can give me some therapy today.
All right, let's do it. Yeah.
So yeah,
hopefully I can.
So you went from house flipping,
to
starting Pallet Collective. Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a lot of it was about jumping into the real estate was something that I did because a lot of people sort of turned me that direction when I left working for the church. Mm-hmm. And it was all just opportunity driven, and it was a way to be able to kind of survive.
Okay.
And met some really cool people along the way. But all the while, my business partner was always like itching to kind of do something different, which kind of pushed me to want to do something different too, because he was my ticket into real estate. And he's like, man, I kind of want to be done. I want to do something else. And so when he started talking about that, I was like already on that train. And so we started exploring different things, different options. And a lot of it was about seeing certain trends and wanting to be a part of that trend. And I'm originally from San Diego, and I had friends out there that were doing some really cool stuff in like maker spaces and utilizing warehouses and bigger sort of real estate environments to divvy it up to smaller business owners. And I was seeing that trend in California and LA and different spots, and it had already existed here in Arizona, but I just didn't feel like anybody was doing it super well.
Okay.
And so we started studying that. I was doing commercial real estate too at the time. And so I was kind of seeing another trend of people looking for smaller and smaller spaces.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there.
Yeah. Commercial real estate is just so expensive. And what I understand, it's for those solo entrepreneurs or those who want to have their own space, not have the big footprint and the triple net lease and all of those.
That barrier to entry for commercial it's high, right?
Yeah.
So our main tenant base was people in hair and beauty.
Okay.
And so for a potential salon owner, you're looking at 1,200 square foot minimums with 3 to 5 year commitments. And if you can get landlords to give you TIs, then maybe you can get some help up front. Otherwise, you're forking out a lot of money to do build outs and first and last month's rent. And
then you also have to have the landlord approve it.
Totally.
And if you don't have the financial backing, or it's your first business, it's an uphill battle. And
then
you wanted good areas, right?
Yeah.
Like
so if you want
Scottsdale,
prime
you're
real
talking.
estate. And so for a lot of people too, if they're just, several years into hair, they've got good clientele, enough to be able to feel like they could run their own business. But then on top of that, to run an actual studio, you're essentially going from just managing your own reality to managing other people. You've got employees, you've got, somebody to man the front, you've got other other stylists that you're potentially overseeing and dealing with commission splits and the drama of employee, management and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a huge leap to become a salon owner.
I was getting a tattoo yesterday, and I've been talking to my tattoo guy for years, and he now just got his own space, and it's been so invaluable. But now we're just talking about the challenges of just moving from by yourself to managing people and helping hold people accountable. Yeah.
So this idea of like
these micro spaces, studios,
small spaces, micro styles.
So how big? So you would rent a warehouse. And you would do the full TI for it.
Yeah. So we were in retail spaces.
Okay.
So we just took down really big commercial real estate.
It's like a Big Lots that went out of business,
something like
or
that,
or a Dick's or something.
Yeah, like our growth model was built around 10,000 square feet. Was kind of the ideal.
How many suites could you fit into that space?
We would do about 45 to 50, depending on the footprint.
Oh wow. So about $1,000 a month per suite, kind of thing
on average. Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of a premium to being in a space like that.
Sure.
But your utilities is included. It's like a gross lease type situation where everything's included.
Okay.
You get Wi-Fi, you have common areas. And for us, like we had coffee shops in the front of house. So we created this culture and vibe for the space that was welcoming and inviting for people's clientele. And
you're a master of creating spaces. What I've watched, and honestly, you're like a humble dude. But like,
I know all the compliments is awkward for me. I was like, I don't know how to react. I'm like, hey, keep it coming.
You're rocking.
Make it stop.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're so good at creating these welcoming spaces. One, you were inviting in social media. You created a kind of a picture, and then you walk into the space. Coffee shop, a great vibe. There's like warm tones.
Right.
And so you're attracting people, a certain kind of vendor or a renter.
Yep.
That would have a certain clientele, and people would want to be in that space.
Well, and our big thing too, and the route that we took, and kind of what inspired me to want to do it, was a lot of our competition, especially in hair and beauty, they kind of had an idea of what a salon should feel like and look like. And so in the common areas, it was themed around how they felt a salon should be.
Okay.
And they wanted to create a salon environment. So, but not only did we want to be able to branch outside of hair and beauty, but we also took an approach that said, we're going to utilize our physical design to match our branding.
Okay.
Which was, we wanted to be a foundation for people to build their brands on. So when we walked into our spaces, it was white walls. We did concrete floors, and our doors were made out of an OSB material that they use in like subflooring in houses.
Okay.
And so they were all really core fundamental elements. And it was meant to sort of subliminally cast this vision of saying like, this is the place where you build off of. So these are foundational elements for you to be able to come in and establish your brand. So instead of saying that your brand has to somehow clash or conflict or deal with, a vibe or an atmosphere that we're creating, we want you to have kind of this blank slate to build off of.
That's cool.
And it did. It allowed people to kind of go a million different directions with their own environments, but it also allowed us to attract tattoo artists, musicians. Like we had an audio studio in one.
Wow.
We had marketing agencies working out of the space. So we had all kinds of people that would utilize it.
As you guys were filling spaces, did it start to become a buzz where everyone wanted to work, or were they coming because it was just a unique space that came from San Diego, but it wasn't really here? Like how did you get those filled up and then start getting those premium rents?
I think some of it's new, like people like new, you know, so we had this natural influx of being the newbies in the industry and people were excited about that. But I think long-term wise, we did, I think, capture what we were hoping to capture, which was the number of times we had stories of people that were like, I saw the salon studio model and knew it worked and knew it was a good fit for me and my growth, but they just didn't like them. They didn't like the vibe of them. And so for a lot of people, they were like, it wasn't until I found Pallet that I actually thought this could be an option for us. So, but we did a lot of other things too to support people in their kind of new beginnings. Like we helped people establish their LLCs and we kind of held the hands in that process. So we were trying to communicate on every level that we were about helping people start businesses.
So one respect, people may think, oh, that you're just like a commercial landlord.
Right.
And you're just renting spaces out. But what I understand, and then part of your, probably I would argue, one of your most effective growth strategies is you were trying to wrap a brand around this to be able to multiply it out.
Yep.
So you had a proof of concept in one location, and then how in the world did you get were you just cash flowing it from there? So like for me, I'm just running like as a business person. I don't know, you're like this. The moment you walk into a space walk into like a business or something new, you're like, okay, they cost this, how many people are coming in?
Yeah.
Like where?
Oh, I get weird with that too. Like bathrooms, like I'm like, I don't know anybody else that walks into a bathroom and like kind of looks around and, oh, they're using that on the bottom corner, you know, like I do weird things inside of businesses. But yeah, as far as like funding, like we had a lot of it going into it. So we had enough to be able to get 2 to 3 going on our own. So that was a big part of our initial plan, is making sure.
So I've never taken on investors.
Right.
So part of your strategy was you developed this concept and you had investors attached to it.
Right.
And
because we had a big dream. We wanted to be a national brand.
Okay.
Our goal was to do 100 locations.
It's a big vision.
Yeah, it was. We didn't get anywhere near that.
What did you end with?
We were at 8 at our top because we had acquired another brand that we were using as a potential growth strategy.
Okay.
So at our highest amount, we had 8. We had 6 pallets.
Nice.
And so they're very capital intensive.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
See, that you have to put in, and as you're building up the brand, I mean, so all of the rent you're just dumping into growth.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, most of the company was very much growth and operations. So we weren't technically like profitable until later on when we kind of pumped the brakes.
How did you do, like, so from an investor standpoint, there's kind of a lot of different ways to do it, like cap rates and or giving up just equity. How did you guys structure that?
So our growth was based on an equity model. So we had given up equity to earn our first partnership for growth, and that gave us the capital to be able to grow several more. We more than doubled because of our equity partnership. Okay. So the model that we were kind of going off of was you hit these thresholds where you can value a company based on EBITDA, which is like a certain measurement of profitability. And you could use multipliers on that. And so the whole idea is as we would scale and we would hit these new multiplier thresholds, we were able to give away less equity of the company as we grew.
Yes.
So it's a pretty traditional growth, like equity formatted.
Yeah, so the larger you grow, just for people that are like, as you're scaling a company, your EBITDA or the multiple that you can get on your EBITDA goes up drastically as you get bigger. Yeah. As the amount of profit goes up, you can ask for more. The market demands a higher multiple. Totally. So like I remember about 3-4 years ago, Ohana was approached by private equity and I was like, oh, what is this? Didn't even barely knew what it was. Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm flattered, but this is a family business. Now this is going to go to my kids. But they were really attracted and they had a really good multiple because once you build out the efficiencies and the processes for 1 to go to 2 to go to 8, and they're like, oh, this works. Yeah. Hey, fellow purpose-driven leaders, if you're loving what you're hearing, we need your help to keep spreading inspiration so others can unleash their purpose too. If you're finding value in our discussions about purpose, entrepreneurship, faith, and family, here's how you can support us. First off, hit that subscribe button right now to make sure you never miss an episode. By subscribing, you'll get notified every time we release a new podcast packed with wisdom and encouragement. Next, take a moment to share this episode with your friends, family, and followers. Whether it's a text message, a post, or a shout out, your recommendation helps us reach more people who are seeking inspiration on their journey. And finally, if you've been enjoying our podcast, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews not only motivate us to keep creating great content, but they also help others discover our show and join our purpose-driven community. So let's keep the momentum going. Subscribe, share, and review the Unleash Your Purpose podcast today, and together, let's make a positive impact on the world, one listener at a time. Now let's dive back into today's episode. So was always your strategy to go to private equity?
It changed a little bit, but it was very much a similar structure. So we were, private equity was a little bit out of reach at first.
Sure.
Outside of the current, like
weren't big enough kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like we knew, and because of some research that we had done, that we needed to hit that certain threshold in order for it to pencil, right? So we needed a certain multiplier.
It's crazy that they'll even, if you're not even profitable.
Right.
And they see the growth.
Yeah.
And they know, and they're like, yeah.
I know. The beauty of EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't necessarily have to be net profitable to be profitable
crazy.
on all the different, we learned a lot of that stuff as we were going.
Yeah.
But we had an internal goal, a target to hit, and we had enough locations to do that, but it was going to take a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So we started exploring bank financing. Okay. And we had
like an SBA kind of loans or commercial lending?
it was more commercial lending, more long-term opportunities, and some of them were tied to the units, the locations, and we were getting kind of creative with it. But ultimately, we actually had like a pretty significant bank deal on the table that was going to afford us 3 to almost 4 more locations, and it fell through because of COVID. So our pencil date was literally like April something. It was like April 5th or something. And then we shut down for the month of April during that time. So
I got
that deal got swiped back. They were like real quickly, just like, nope. So
did they want to take like your children and your homes and everything else too?
No, not quite.
No,
not originally. But
not originally. Maybe after COVID.
Yeah.
See, I got a bank loan and I got an SBA loan, small business loan. And if I ever coach someone else, I would say avoid that as much as possible.
I've heard really bad things about
SBA man, loans. They want everything. They want your blood type and your firstborn child and every one of your homes. Not really, but like they tried to like secure to my house, and I had a couple investment properties at that point, and they're like, oh, how many investment properties you got? I'm like, none of your business.
Right.
And then they look up and they're trying to tie up all of my investment properties.
Well,
and then
I
couldn't refi.
That, like, I've heard that if you ever get in trouble,
that's the first thing they take. They'll come after you. Hey kids, we're gonna go live with grandma and grandpa.
You. Right.
Yeah.
They have no hesitation to come after you. It's crazy.
Yeah. And the banker always at first is so charismatic and yes, we'll get a deal done. And they're like the sales guy.
Right.
And then the second layer is you go to underwriting and go to actually get the bank done. And they're like
those guys are the brutal ones.
Yeah. I need this paperwork. Why did you, like, they're shaming you.
Yeah. Underwriters in general, I feel like are, but it's their job, right?
So equity partnerships make a lot of sense, but then you're giving up some equity.
Right. But it's that sort of reality. It's like, do you want 100% of something that caps out at, X amount? And, simple math, like, do you want 100% of $1 million or do you want 10% of $1 billion? You know what I mean? It's like, they're different numbers.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a reality, I think, in today's world, is that you have to decide kind of your growth strategy.
Totally.
You can be really small and just stay mom and pop and support your family and do really well and maybe grow to 2 locations. But if you want to have a large footprint.
Yeah. And there's pros and cons to both options too. Major.
Yeah.
I mean, there were seasons where I was like, I literally would do the math and I looked at my business partner and I was like, do you realize if we just stuck to our first 2, where we would have been at, like
It's
especially
more profitable to be small, right?
Sometimes it can be, like there were tough seasons that we were going through where I was like,
what's your worst season as an entrepreneur? Isn't it? I love that people nowadays, even on social media, talk about how great, I think entrepreneurship has been sensationalized, that it's so fun and everyone needs to do it. When really 5% of people should be an entrepreneur, 1% are really successful at being entrepreneurs. Most people should be like, I heard this word entrepreneur, like you are, you work within the company and make that vision your own.
Yeah.
That may be a way more effective strategy, but like they think it's this great thing, and it's actually much more lonely and way more stressful.
Totally.
Than
I've actually had a bunch of conversations with friends about this, because we do kind of glorify entrepreneurship quite a bit, I feel like, in our society, and
it's top 5 like sexiest searches.
Yeah, and I mean, there's huge upsides to it.
Yeah, the time freedom and being able to make your own schedule.
Right.
It's nice.
But those are all relative, right? Because they're not guarantees.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to have your company or business own you. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge struggle to get business owners to run their companies in such a way where it actually affords them those things.
Yeah.
It's not natural a lot of times.
Did you eat and breathe it pretty much?
There were times that I did, but I feel like it became a goal of mine really early on, because that was one of the reasons why I got into it, was for time and financial freedom. I worked on like the self-development pieces to be able to kind of build it in such a way where I didn't have to. Mm-hmm. I did not shy away from the upfront work that it took to get it there.
Yeah.
And I was the plumber and the electrician and the painter and all of that. And I had seasons where it felt like that was all I did,
Yeah. Like, really, another toilet leak? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure even in the final days, I was still a plumber every once in a while. But I tried to avoid that as much as I could.
But not on social media. You make it look good, right?
Yeah. There are times where you could use that to your advantage, but
yeah, that's true. So now you have an exit through private equity.
Yeah.
Was that exciting or horrible?
Yeah,
or?
it was
I
one
heard
of those.
From lots of people, it's different.
It was one of those boxes that I felt like I wanted to check.
Okay.
It was like a goal of mine to build something and sell it. Like I felt like the ultimate like success point to be able to sell to say that you had something that was worth selling.
Sure.
And
for those people who don't know, private equity is typically a group of investors who all pool their money.
Right.
And they have kind of infrastructure and operations that can help scale a business. And most times when you get private equity, they take a large percentage of the business, the controlling interest of it. They may give a really good multiple, and their main focus is to grow whatever business they buy.
Right.
And then most times is hold it for a certain amount of time, a finite time. Typically don't keep it forever.
Right.
And then flip it and sell it to another private equity firm.
Yeah. Or take it public.
Yeah.
That's a lot of private equity's goals, but and so we technically had 2 private equity interactions. We partnered with private equity along the way.
Okay.
And then we ended up selling to private equity, who, to be honest, we initially reached out to for growth. Because when we lost that bank financing because of COVID, we were still in a good place. Like our company was doing well. We grew ultimately in 2020 and had success through COVID. And so we were coming off of that ready to get back into growth. And so we shifted gears and started looking back into private funding for growth, and started conversations with a group that made the most sense. And then they gave us an offer to purchase that we ended up taking. So,
and you're before 40 and you're saying peace out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So like, and now you have this kind of a bunch of other different companies that, because it's would you say in your temperament, and very similar to me, like if I ever sold to private equity or something like that, which I wouldn't, but like, I don't know how long I would be able to just be still.
Totally.
And not create and not think about the next thing.
Yeah. There's been aspects of that that's been a little weird, to be honest, like because I have the itch constantly. It's just, there have been times where I'm like, oh man, starting from scratch again has been a little bit of a hard thing to swallow.
Like humbling.
There's a humbling, there's more of annoying factor to it than humbling, I guess.
Like doing your own QuickBooks or what? Like that kind of stuff?
Or even just like doing my own manual labor again. Like, you know, I got into a business with my wife, like, because it was almost more of a
side project.
Something we could make hobby turned business kind of a thing. It was like a passion of ours. But we find ourselves in storage rooms dealing with furniture in the middle of the summer.
Yes.
It's brutal.
It is brutal.
There have been plenty of moments where I'm like sitting there going, like,
why?
How am I here right now? You know? but it's been more fun than it's been a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I just heard yesterday from my father-in-law who came onto my team years ago to help us get our crap together. And he's helping build out one of our studios for one of our gyms. And he said, "Oh man, dude," I go, "What'd you do this weekend?" He's like, "Well, I went to the studio and had to unload a huge trailer." I was like, "Why didn't you call me?" But I'm like, thank God you didn't call me.
Yeah, seriously.
You had to go like a 40-foot trailer, climbing over crap to get everything in there. I'm just like, oh, thank God I didn't have to go. But I'm grateful for you. I'm
Right,
like the worst.
seriously.
I want to be
the biggest high
a
five
servant
ever.
leader, but
Right.
I do. But if I don't have to do that anymore, I'd be all right.
Yeah. So there has been things that have been a little weird, but the desire, I think, to have something is definitely there.
Yeah.
Almost to not a negative way, but kind of, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like haunting.
Yeah.
That feeling of always needing to do something.
Yeah.
Because when it's not obvious or when there's something that doesn't quite make sense, you still have it. And so I find myself just like digging constantly, looking for stuff.
Like, how do you know which to go to and what not to look at for your next thing?
I don't know. I think that's always the big challenge is wanting it to make sense. I think one of the hard things for me too is like dealing with it a little bit later now is like my risk tolerance is different.
Yeah. My risk tolerance I used to be very like risk tolerant and would go after it. And now that I got kids and a family and not even just that, like an employees and 500 people's livelihoods, I'm like, man, the decisions that I make and I don't want to have to, you would never want to harm this.
Right.
That takes care of everything else.
Yeah. So like there's ideas that I've been kind of sitting on for the last like year that I'm still trying to figure out if I actually want to do.
Yeah.
Cause I'm weirdly like nervous about it. And I don't think I would have been several years ago, 5-10 years ago, I would have been ready to go. I'm trying to figure out how to make it happen. So.
Do you feel like, are you a more of a partnership guy versus doing it solo?
I think
you always had a business
been
partner.
there. Yeah.
And now you're doing it with your wife.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've always been like that. And you hear so many different takes on whether or not it's good to have partners or not.
Yeah.
And I think there's been part of me that's always wanted to be the solo act guy.
Yeah.
But I just crave partnerships. I think if you can do it well, I think there's more flexibility built inside of it.
Sure.
Which time freedom has always been my number one priority. And so
you do a very good job of like, you love your family really well. You're very involved in your kids' lives. I think that's one of the best things which I'm most grateful for is that is the same value that I have. Mm-hmm. Like I have to be able to be there for my kids. They know that I'll never miss a game. Yeah. They know that I'll never I'll make sure that they get the private training or we'll have family devotions and I'll turn it off when I need to. And that, if I had to work a 9-to-5 or a W-2 job, I don't know.
That'd be the hardest thing. But it's also I really honestly think that time freedom is one of the harder things to get out of entrepreneurship though, too. Because there's a way to be able to reach financial goals by breaking your back to do it. Mm-hmm. But having the time. It costs
something.
Yeah.
I remember when we first started Ohana, I didn't collect a paycheck for 3 years.
Right.
Not $1.
Another joy of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right?
And I worked another full-time job.
Yeah.
In probably 2 jobs.
Totally.
Just to pay the bills and did overnights and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I had to choose, do I bring in this staff person to do this so I can be with my kids?
Right.
Or do I try to save $1 or $2 to make it happen? And those are the real stressful decisions.
Dude, those are the hardest, man. And even if the math of it all makes sense to where you can legitimately say that, by making this hire, it's going to grow your company to X, even with that information, which is hard to get.
Yeah.
Even then it's still a hard decision to make, because sometimes it puts you backwards a little bit before it takes you forwards.
That's right.
And it feels weird.
Okay. Well, we have a lot to talk about after this camera turns off.
Yeah. I know. I want to dive in and
I know.
I like getting into the weeds of it all, into the thick of it all. It's fun.
I don't. No, but I will. I will, because I know it's needed. But I realize I need help and support to get into the weeds.
Totally.
Because I like to doing it for a short time, but then I'm like, oh, dude, I gotta go make a podcast.
Yeah. All right.
Well, you got your real friends. You got a real life coaching session that it always looks good on the outside, and something looks really beautiful, but it continues to be challenges no matter what, and you constantly have to tweak and shift things to kind of. It's like your business is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
Last question. It's not about business.
Okay.
But as business and as a dad and everything and all things life, I always ask all my guests this last question. It says, if you were to, at the end of your life, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oof, man, you didn't prep me at all on this.
No.
You gotta throw it right on the spot.
We talk about boats in the beginning, then you're gonna fix my business, and now you're dead. Tell me.
What do I want to be remembered for? I think how I've treated my family is a big part of it. Like, I know a lot of people talk about legacy, and a lot of like, even inside of business, legacy is a big conversation. But I think for me, family really has been my ultimate driver for so many of my decisions. And I want to be able to, I think the opinion of my kids and my wife are the thing I value most. And so I think on the surface, I would love to be able to have a lot of people say this about me, but ultimately I think having the respect and the voice of my family, I think matters most. So if they, at the end of my life, have good things to say about me as a dad and as a husband, then I think I've won.
That's 100% truth right there.
Yeah.
And I think what I know about your family is that they are your biggest fan.
Yeah.
And they love traveling.
Yeah.
And what I love is that your business is just a tool for that.
Totally.
And the more people I have to have conversations with that I respect in business, care less about the business and more about that.
Right.
And I think that's a really important thing that people need to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
It takes equal sacrifice too at times.
It does.
Because sometimes keeping your family as a priority means a little bit of sacrifice on the potential growth and success of your business in weird ways.
And in order to have that with your family, there's maybe a season you have to talk to your family and say, hey, I got to drill down right now and focus in on this.
Totally.
It's just a season. And then.
Yeah. It's an ebb and flow a little bit of sacrifice. And
it's not a balance thing. Like as much as like work-life balance. I don't know. I think it's just a life thing. And you got to learn how to, ebb and flow.
Right.
And how to integrate all of that together into that one life you have.
And make tough priority decisions too at times.
Yeah.
Where, maybe the business should be demanding more, but because of things that are going on, it just can't.
I got my son's game to go to. That has to wait.
Right.
Well, thanks, Seth.
Yeah,
Appreciate you. Until next time, we'll see you. May you unleash your purpose so you can profit in business, faith, and life.
Thanks for joining us for the Unleash Your Purpose podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.